All right, the draft 4 weeks from tonight. Let's talk big board with Charles Davis and Ryan Wilson. They have their own boards to bring us. Charles, we talk to Ryan Wilson sometimes multiple times a day, and we get his big board, we get his mock drafts. We don't get a chance to talk to you all the time, so I'm going to start with you here and your overall big board. Your number one player is, a guy that you're going to see on a lot of top fives in big boards, and he is number 5 on Ryan's board. But why is Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame, your number one overall player?
Well, first and foremost, just so we're clear, the grassy knoll no longer exists. So if you go to Dealey Plaza, it is not there, okay? They removed it a while ago. Spinning it forward now, why is Kyle Hamilton my guy? There is some bias. I'm a former defensive back. But the way the game is played now with balls in the air all the time, with a player that you don't take off the field who has range, instincts, ability to tackle, you can drop him in the box, you can play him in center field. I know people got all bent out of shape when he ran 4.59 at the combine. He came back and ran 4.56 at his pro day. With his length, that's not an issue. Go back, watch Florida State. The play made from center field. He is a true 3-down, 4-down player who can do everything for you, plus bring great maturity to your locker room, plug and play right away. I'm crazy about him. I know about the defensive ends. I know about the other guys. I respect them. I think the way the game is played now, the back end is getting more attention than it ever got before, and Kyle Hamilton's the leader as far as I'm concerned.
You're exactly right, Charles, and I give you a lot of credit for sticking with Kyle Hamilton after the slow-ish 40 times, if you want to call him that. During the season, even though he's 6'4", I compared his sideline-to-sideline ability to that of Ed Reed from back in the day. He was drafted in 2002. They both ran into the 4.5s. Neither one is slow when you watch them play, so I appreciate the fact that you're not being swayed by public opinion just because he didn't blow the doors off at his combine or at his pro day, because he did it every single week. My number one guy has been my number one guy for so long that I'm sure Chris Hassel's incredibly bored that I'm going to say this. Aiden Hutchinson is my guy. He's done so much over the course of his career. He's gotten better and better. I talked to Rashawn Gary last week just about the Michigan edge rushers in general, and he talked about the progress that Aiden Hutchinson made over the course of his career. I remember watching him in 2019 thinking, okay, he's a good player, but he doesn't feel like a first-round talent. And the improvements and the jumps he made in productivity, especially in 2021, certainly get your attention. Now, the name to watch, of course, is Travon Walker. Charles didn't have Travon Walker. He had Garrett Wilson, who's a fantastic player as well. Those two guys were swapped on our list, but Travon Walker is there because of the upside. He played in a defense that was so incredibly good. They ended up playing about 20 snaps a game, so it's hard to get an idea of just how good Travon Walker was, but he is going to get better. He's going to be used in positions that allow him to come off the edge at 275. He can play inside at 3 technique, and I think he's going to be a game changer, and he's one of these guys that feels like could end up leapfrogging Kayvon Thibodeau by the time the draft rolls around.
Aiden Hutchinson is the pretty overwhelming favorite at minus 300, but Travon Walker is coming. He's just 3-1 to go number 1 overall and number 4 on Ryan's big board. Let's zero into positions now, and Malik Willis with the best odds of quarterbacks to go number 1 overall at 22-1. But Willis is not among the top 2, according to Charles and Ryan on their big board. They both have Matt Corral in their top 2. But the big difference here, Charles, is Ryan has Kenny Pickett 4th on his board. You've got Pickett number 1. Why?
Well, I think that, and I'm going to guess, and Ryan will be able to answer this better than I can. I think that when you think about the guys that he has rated ahead, and by the way, Ryan, big ups on Matt Corral because he is my man crush. Okay, just so we're clear on all of this. But the reason I believe is that Kenny Pickett, we use those terms, pro-ready, ready to play right now, step in and run an offense. Kenny Pickett feels like Mac Wilson did last year. All right, coming in from Alabama to New England. That's how it feels to me, that Kenny Pickett could step in, go ahead and play right now. So that's a lot of reason I've got him up there. The other guys, I would bet that they have a higher ceiling. And I feel like that's where Ryan is going with that. And I totally understand it. For me, my riser is Desmond Ridder, because I think about Dak Prescott and how we underrated him coming out. That's the same type of a player, same type of body, same type of movement skills with a big arm and can make plays. That's why Desmond Ridder is my riser in terms of what I put on the board right now. I want him to get some recognition.
I think that's so incredibly important, Charles, that you talk about Desmond Ridder as a riser. My issue with Desmond Ridder, he's a fantastic leader. We talked to him at the Combine, and I felt like I wanted to run through the wall after hearing him talk about how much he loved football and loved playing at Cincinnati and bringing that program back. My issue, of course, is the accuracy, and I don't want to close him out because, to your point, guys can get better. Josh Allen got a lot better from Wyoming to year 3 in the NFL, and I think that's what you have to guard against as you try to evaluate these prospects. But I'm with you on Matt Corral, and he might be your crush. We're going to have to fight over him because I love Matt Corral too. I'm glad to hear someone else in the media does because it's hard to find those guys. I love everything he does. I know he plays in that Lane Kiffin system, but the NFL is going to a lot of RPO offense stuff. We know he can throw the ball. He has a fantastic arm. He runs incredibly well. He takes maybe a few too many hits than you would like as a head coach, and I get that, and hopefully you can coach that out of him. But he's a smart player who's gotten a lot better. Sam Howell at number 2, I'll be honest, that actually surprised me as well because I watched the Virginia Tech game at the beginning of the year that they lost. And that was some hard slogging because he did not have a good day. He had lost 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers to the NFL, and he was doing the heavy lifting. But I went back and watched 3 games, and he got better, and he got a lot better, and he had to carry that team, drag that team at times to either victories or close to victories. And I think he's going to end up being a much better pro than he was what we saw last year. And finally, I mentioned Kenny Pickett, who I just don't love. He doesn't do it for me like Mac Jones or Joe Burrow, and I know there's sometimes the comparisons. I think he left some throws on the field in terms of checkdowns and perhaps passing up opportunities for big plays down the field. That doesn't mean he won't be a good pro. I just don't know if I'd be interested in taking him, say, 6 overall from the Panthers, who have millions of needs in addition to quarterback, but they don't have an offensive line. You put anybody back there, and it's going to look a lot like I think what we saw last year with Sam Darnold and those struggles.
We are comparing big boards. Charles, go ahead.
Chris, let me thank Ryan very quickly because I said Mac Wilson, who was a linebacker from Alabama. Mac Jones is the quarterback I was reaching for, and I messed up on that one. So that might go the way of the grassy knoll itself. So all that being said, I like this. I like where we're going because this quarterback argument is going to go all the way to the wire. All right. It'll be interesting because to me, the draft with quarterback starts with Carolina at 6. Last year, they passed on the opportunity to take Justin Fields or Mac Jones in that spot or near that spot. They took neither. Do you come back this year and get guys who are lesser ranked? Take one of them. Is it Kenny Pickett? Is it Matt Corral? Is it, Malik Willis? That's going to be where, to me, this draft really gets interesting if we have no more movement among who's going to pick at the top.
Yeah, we'll see if this draft ends up being what we think it is, which is quarterbacks that might be able to help you out, but no sure thing, and maybe not a top 5 pick either. As Charles said, might start at number 6 with the Carolina Panthers. Let's move on to wide receivers. And Charles, you have a little splaining to do here, okay? Because we saw your big board, and I know you're going to have an explanation for us. You had Garrett Wilson on your big board overall as the number 4 overall player. Jamison Williams was not on that, but you have Jamison Williams as your number 1 wide receiver. Explain to us how that is.
Chris, just give me 5 minutes to explain, okay? Let me give Ricky Ricardo his due, all right? And he deserves it. The reason is very simple. Jamison Williams is not on anyone's boards right now because of the injury he suffered during the college football playoff. Ahead of schedule, we expect him back. All things being equal, he's not hurt. He's ahead of these other guys. So I wanted to make sure, again, his name was popped out there because I think at some point, if that medical really checks out and we have a team that's kind of okay with what their roster is, he could still very well be a first-round pick and redshirt him a little bit to make sure he's ready to go and he plays somewhere by midseason or maybe earlier. He is the top receiver I have, but because of the injury, I just didn't put him in there with the receivers who are there right now. Again, I manipulated things. Ryan, sorry about that. I tend to do this. I manipulated what I was asked to make sure that one other person's name got mentioned, and for me, it's Jamison Williams.
I love it, Charles. Jamison Williams would be wide receiver 1 for me if he were healthy. We knew he had that ACL injury in the national championship game. And I'm with you. When he got hurt back in January, I talked to 3 teams that said he's still going to be a first-round pick or certainly something close to that. And I feel that exact same way. If you're sitting there at 19 as the Eagles with your 3rd first-round pick and you take Jameson Williams, you should feel great about that if you're Jalen Hurts. Number one, you're bringing the band back together from Alabama. Number two, he could end up being a really, really good football player by November. In a lot of ways, it reminds me what Jeffrey Simmons and the Titans had going on. He was a defensive lineman who tore his ACL in February before the draft, and they took him around the 20ish range, and he ended up being dominant by about November. He was a top 5 talent. You just have to wait. If you can wait too much, you can get a pretty big payoff out of it. The name I'll mention is Treylon Burks. You had Jahan Dotson as opposed to Treylon Burks. We had everything else the same. Treylon Burks ran that 4.55 at the combine, and everyone was worried that, oh my gosh, he's slow. If you watch Treylon Burks play, he plays incredibly fast. He reminds me in a lot of ways of the best of Anquan Bolden and Juju Smith-Schuster and a little A.J. Brown there. And if you sort of like that wide receiver, then Treylon Burks might be the guy for you. I think he makes some sense around 20 if you're the Steelers. Apparently the Packers need a wide receiver, I've heard, and maybe even the Chiefs might think about it at 29 and 30, although they may have to trade up to get him. But I think Treylon Burks is a guy who may slip in the eyes of the media because of that 40 time, but if you watch him play, you would have no idea that he ran to the 4.5s. He looked more like a 4.4-ish guy, how often he ran away from all those SEC cornerbacks.
That's an HQ first.
Throw in Deebo Samuel. I love where Ryan is going with those names and those comparisons. The body type, the way that they used him at Arkansas, he is this year's Deebo Samuel, to go with that because of how they utilized and made sure he touched the football all the time.
Charles Davis, Ryan Wilson, thank you so much, giving us your big boards, a little comparison, a little back and forth, and a little splaining from the fellas. Thank you so much, guys. Pick Six Podcast, the very latest episode, obviously hosted by Will Brinson. He's joined by Tyler Sullivan, and they rank the offseason quarterback moves by impact and the impact they think they'll have on the upcoming season.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.